Time now for hot picks. We're looking at cannabis stocks, which have been under some pressure for some time now. Although our guest says that both U.S. and Canadian markets will continue to slow over time, he does have three picks he sees potential in. Let's welcome Frederico Gomes, Director of Institutional Research in Life Sciences at ATB Capital Markets. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So let's get a broad overview of, I guess, Canada, the U.S., cannabis stocks in general, the cannabis market. You expect slow growth. What are some of the factors for that?
Well, in Canada, we are 5-6 years into legalization, so it's expected that the market is maturing, and so the growth rates have slowed down, and I think we've seen that in the retail sales data in Canada. In the U.S., what we're seeing is you have different states that have legalized. But the U.S. Cannabis industry relies on new states flipping to adult use, so from medical to adult use, and there's a lack of relevant states near term. So that's why we've seen a growth slowdown in the U.S.
Let's look at your top picks here, your hot picks rather. Green Thumb Industries. You call this the best play in the U.S. Why? What are some of the reasons for that?
It is a consensus long among investors. I think Green Thumb is one of the largest U.S. multi-state operators. We call them U.S. MSOs. So they operate in 15 states in the U.S., one of the best companies in terms of the balance sheet. So very important for these U.S. cannabis companies. We have huge maturities coming due across the industry in 2025 and 2026. Green Thumb doesn't because they have already refinanced, so that's very important. And then second point is just cash flows. If you look at all the companies that are publicly listed companies in the U.S., Green Thumb is definitely one of the best cash flow generators in this space. The company has been able to invest for growth, invest even in buying back stock. They have an active buyback program, and so that's why we like Green Thumb.
So that trades over the counter in the U.S., but also trades in Canada. I guess the ticker is GTII, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a $2.1 billion market cap. All right, let's move along to Organigram. That's a name that a lot of Canadian investors know. This is now, as you say, the largest producer, licensed producer in Canada. What is it about Organigram that you like?
So leaders in Canada, highest market share. They recently acquired a company called Motif Labs, gaining a position in vapes, and became the largest player. So we like their scale, which we think is very important. Second, we like the balance sheet. So the company has no debt. Again, very important in this sector is the fact that you have no debt or very low leverage. So the company is very safe in that regard. They have a partnership, an investment with British American Tobacco. Because of that partnership, they're able to invest in innovation, new products, invest in their brands, and also make some investments, strategic investments internationally in Europe and the US, which they have done. So the company has a good growth trajectory here, especially internationally. Germany, the UK, European markets, I think LPs are focusing on those growth markets outside of Canada, and OGI is very, very well positioned.
And roughly how big is that stake that British American Tobacco owns?
Pro forma should be close to about 40%.
40%?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, another hot pick here is SNDL, used to be called SNDL, which you pointed out before we got on here. And you say it's unique. How is it unique?
It's very unique because they have different operating segments. So they are in liquor retail. They were one of the largest liquor retailers in North America. They are in cannabis retail in Canada. They are a grower and producer in Canada as well. And they have investments in the U.S. So they're exposed to the whole supply chain, both in Canada and the U.S. So very unique in that sense. We really like the exposure to cannabis retail in Canada because we see the cannabis retail market consolidating and favoring large retailers such as SNDL. And then in the U.S., the company has exposure to two investments that are undergoing restructuring. We believe that if those restructurings get through, they're going to get an equity-like exposure to the Florida market and the Michigan market, which are two of the largest markets in the U.S. So again, a company that has no debt. They're debt-free in their balance sheet. They have a net cash position and exposure to the whole supply chain in Canada and the U.S. In terms of cannabis.
All right, Frederico, we've been looking at the charts of Green Thumb, Organigram, SNDL. They don't look great. We know that a lot of Canadian investors got burned if they bought at the high watermark with a lot of these companies. So Why have exposure at all in cannabis? Or could you argue that, well, if you do get rescheduling in the U.S. and if you get interstate banking, that could be a huge catalyst? Is that one of the reasons?
Yes, that would be a huge catalyst. So the way that we see the U.S. market right now, we think that the sentiment is very negative because Florida didn't pass last November. So that dropped sentiment in the sector. But again, it's a sector that depends on regulatory catalysts. Long term, it's a $100 billion industry in terms of illegal and legal sales. Right now, legal sales are about 30 billion, so we have a long runway for growth. But you need those regulatory catalysts. So we have rescheduling, we have potentially safe banking, we have maybe Pennsylvania legalizing next year, and all those catalysts could move these stocks higher.
And do you think we'll see rescheduling from Category 1 to 3 to make it, it's up there with heroin right now,
yes.
Category 1. Will that happen under the Trump administration fairly soon, do you think?
So Trump has made a statement that he is in favor of rescheduling, which is good. Other members of the administration are not that clear, so it's still uncertain. We have to see who's going to be the head of the DEA and the head of the DOJ. But I do believe it's a process that is ongoing. I think long term, it is inevitable.
Thanks, Frederico.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks for the insight. That is Frederico Gomes. I called him Gomes earlier. My apologies.